Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this podcast, really, there's no need for me to tell you what this podcast is about. You see the cover art, you already know what time it is. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I rarely talk about current events, but I'm going to break mold this week because we are talking about the Super Bowl halftime show, or as my man Bomani Jones likes to call it, the G-Funk All-Stars. The G-Funk halftime. I like that, by the way, because that's exactly what it was. When we got word, was it 5-6 months ago, that Dr. Dre and others would be doing the halftime show for the Super Bowl that was in Los Angeles in Dr. Dre's backyard, basically. You know, I was excited, but I had to temper my excitement because you just never know how these things are going to go, right? I've seen enough halftime shows. I've been to a Super Bowl where there was a halftime show, and it's different. So you just never know what you're going to get. So I always temper my excitement. But the lineup with Dr. Dre, Snoop, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, and Eminem. Those are some of the best right there. And so who wasn't going to, be down to watch that? But again, I still didn't know what to expect. Again, the Super Bowl was held in Los Angeles, and I'm not going to talk about the game because forget the game. The game is not important. I tweeted out, I said, this is one of the few times where I could remember being more excited for the halftime show than I was the game. And the game was a really good game. But so let's get right to it. First of all, they come out and the set is amazing. And I will encourage all of you, once you finish listening to this podcast, go to YouTube or go streaming or wherever you can find it, and watch it again. I was really surprised because when I saw it live at the Super Bowl, watching the Super Bowl from my home, and then I went back and watched it on YouTube, I realized that the performance is only 15 minutes. And I say only because it felt like it was much longer than that, but it went by pretty quickly. But it was still really, really dope. I think it didn't seem as long. I think it seemed longer once I watched YouTube, but I don't know. It's just kind of different. But anyway, the time kind of threw me off because I thought it probably was a little bit longer than that. But anyway, so they start the joint out. They come out to the next episode. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and the place is rocking, right? And what I will say is something that I've noticed just from being at a Super Bowl where, there was a halftime show. If you really want to see a dope halftime show, it's probably better to watch it on TV than it is to watch it in the arena or the stadium, because you don't get all of the camera angles. You don't get all of the stuff. And this huge set that Dr. Dre and Snoop were on, and, subsequently Mary J. And Eminem and Kendrick, I think you could probably if you were in the stadium, you could probably get lost as to what was going on if you weren't really watching these monitors. And to be honest, I'm not sure. In fact, I'm pretty confident in saying that even the monitors and the cameras at SoFi Stadium where the game was held and where the performance happened, I'm pretty confident in saying that those that were in the stadium didn't see what we saw on TV. So what we saw on TV was incredible. Dre and Snoop again. Next episode, Dre is in all black. Snoop is in a. He's basically decked out in a Rams, uh, in Rams colors, but it would look like a big. It looked like he had on a big Crip flag. And if you don't know, Snoop is a member of the Rolling 60s Crips in Los Angeles. And so he gets up there and they're doing next episode and they're jamming. And, you know, what was interesting, I thought was really dope was Snoop goes downstairs into like the home, I guess, and you can see the band playing. And then in the background, you can see a picture of Snoop and his mom. Now, if you're familiar, Snoop's mom passed away, I want to say maybe about a month or so ago. So I thought that was really, really dope. I don't know if people caught it, but you can catch it if you watch it again, when he goes downstairs and he's in like this living room section. You can see a picture of him and his mom. I thought that was really well played, and a real delicate touch. And then they go from the next episode to California Love. Man, listen. I mean, you knew that this song was going to get played. It's weird because I read somewhere some dumb rumor that there was a possibility that they would be introducing a Tupac hologram, which I thought was a crazy idea. You can't bring the Tupac hologram back to life. You can't bring it out at the Super Bowl of all places. But you know, California Love is a joint. Is Tupac's song. You knew it was going to get played. And it was funny, man, because you're watching this, and in the middle of California Love, the camera's on Snoop, and Snoop is crip walking at the Super Bowl. You gotta love it. They did an overhead shot, and I could that's when I realized that where the set was on the ground beneath them was a map of a city. I assumed that it was LA, but it was actually Compton. And I didn't know it was Compton until the woman sitting next to me, who was from Compton, said, "Oh, that's Compton." And that was my wife. She's from Compton. I didn't know it was a Compton map, but I thought that was really, really dope. And like I said, they were jamming, man. They were really, really jamming. And it was just, Compton on the map at the Super Bowl. Dr. Dre. And allow me to just talk briefly here about Dr. Dre, because all of this is a bug out to a guy like me. And I'm going to tell you why, because I've been listening to Dr. Dre since 1987. Yeah. That sounds about right. 87. Yeah. Cause they came out with, NWA and Eazy-E came out, and then, it was either 87 or 88, somewhere around there. I think I heard the first time I heard it was Dope Man on a cassette tape. But nonetheless, I go back that far with Dr. Dre. My man, shout out to Jay Fresh. My man Jay Fresh put me on to Dr. Dre and Eazy-E and NWA. And so, you know, just to see him go from NWA to Straight Outta Compton to, you know, Death Row to Aftermath and all of the hits and all of the artists that he's brought up and all the music that he's made. And I just for a brief second, I just remember, you know, Dr. Dre and Eazy-E talking about fuck the police and Ice Cube and his NMC Ran and DJ Yella. I mean, like, and it was NWA all day. And so he went from that to, you know, being this hip hop billionaire mogul, and he's performing in front of hundreds of millions of people across the world. That's bugged out to me. But nonetheless, Then we get a surprise guest, 50 Cent. Now, I can't speak for everybody else, but they went into the beat of In the Club, which is 50's song produced by Dr. Dre. And 50 begins, we see 50 at the first shot we see of 50, he's hanging upside down, just as he was in the Club video. But the 50 that was hanging upside down in the video in 2003 is a whole lot smaller than the 50 that was hanging upside down in 2022. 50 gets up, he's performing, and he's got on a wife beater, and you know, 50 looks a lot bigger than he used to be. Then again, I guess that's the deal. We all are. Nobody's the same size they were in 2003. But he was the meme of a lot of jokes that I saw on the internet, and most of them were funny. He's no longer 50 Cent. He's a half a dollar. He's, he was swole. But a good performance nonetheless. And what they did was they kind of remade the In the Club video, which I thought was cool. And at that point, dancers from just kind of came out of everywhere. 50 had dancers dancing with him, but then there were also dancers outside of the set. And it was crazy. It was crazy. A lot of stuff was going on, and I was enjoying every single minute of it. There were lowriders on the field at the Super Bowl. It's crazy. And then they transitioned to the Queen, Mary Jane Blige. Oh, MJB. Y'all know I love MJB. Mary J. Blige, the only female performer on the Super Bowl halftime show, but her place was well deserved. And, I thought, outside of me just being a huge fan, I thought that I'm glad that they gave her the opportunity, because obviously she's worked with Dre as well. So she performed Family Affair, which is a joint that was produced by Dr. Dre. Mary was out there in all white, with thigh-high boots, and Mary's gotten a little thicker. She's gotten a little thicker, and fellas, from what I could tell, commentary that I saw on social media, fellas was checking her out. Mary's she's got to be like 50, right? She's got to be 50. I think she just turned 50, but she looks great. And if you're familiar with Mary J. Blige, you know her story and all the stuff that she's gone through, just coming off of a divorce. But she did Family Affair. No hateration, holleration, all up in the dancery in the Super Bowl. You can't make this shit up, man. And she had some great dancers behind her. And then she kind of slowed it down and she went into No More Pain. Listen, even though the song transitions to a slower song and a more heartfelt song, it was still dope, man, because she still had her dancers dancing. And Mary just, when Mary gets into that vibe of, singing, not singing, but singing, SANGIN, singing, listen, it's few that can't compare with her, honestly, because she evokes so much emotion and so much raw feeling that you gotta feel her. Like you just gotta feel her. But that was dope. And at the end of her performance of No More Pain, Mary falls out on the set, on purpose, of course. And then the camera pans over to the right, and there looks like these black squares. And you hear the music coming on. Mad City from a man, Kendrick Lamar. Listen, I mean, you gotta have Kendrick Lamar. If it's, I mean, you talking Compton, L.A., you gotta have Kendrick Lamar in there. And someone said on Twitter that he brought back the S1Ws. Shout out to the S1Ws. But no, I thought his performance was dope too, man. He had all of these guys. They were all decked out in black with this thing across their chest that said Dre Day. Every guy that was in his dancing group, I guess, had their hair dyed gold. I don't know if there was some type of symbolism behind that. But it was wild, man. I mean, and the one thing that I did catch the first time that I heard that I saw it, when I saw it during the game, was when Kendrick went into his second song, the Ghetto Anthem, All Right. I mean, we knew that song was going to get played. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Now, once we knew who was performing, you could kind of guess as to what songs would be played or what songs would be performed, but there was no way that Kendrick Lamar Duckworth was going to perform and not perform All Right. But what's interesting is when he got to the part about saying, and we hate Po, he didn't say it. And so we later find out that the NFL tried to, or asked to, censor some of the words and the performances. In fact, when Mad City comes on, you don't hear the beginning where he says, if Pyrus and Crips all got along, they probably gun me down by the end of this song. It's LA, it's the Super Bowl. Yeah, you probably don't want to be shouting out the Pyrus and Crips in the song during the Super Bowl. But given the fact that they still, I mean, they kind of scratched it out or whatever, but it's still there. And we still sang it, we still rapped it or whatever. And I think that still speaks volumes about Kendrick Lamar. I mean, Pyrus and Crips getting shouted out at the Super Bowl. I mean, you can't make this shit up. And Kendrick is in all black, black shades, and he's doing his thing. And I mentioned his dancers had gold hair. Kendrick does All Right, finishes, and then they pan out, and the stage starts to come apart, and Eminem is rapping Forgot About Dre, the hook on Forgot About Dre. And then he goes into Lose Yourself. Now listen, Eminem going into Lose Yourself, honestly, and I realized this when I saw it live, and then when I went back and watched it on YouTube again, that song got the biggest cheer. And I don't know, maybe it's because, that might be the only song that probably everybody in the stands knew. But yeah, it was and M did his thing. I mean, he had dancers up there. When they flashed to the band that was performing with him, I immediately noticed the drummer. The drummer was Anderson .Paak. You got Anderson .Paak, a guy from LA, Metro LA. So, when Lose Yourself comes on, the dancers go wild. At that time, Dre is sitting behind this huge white board, and he's kind of controlling everything, and he's mimicking as if he's making all of the moves on the board or what have you, and moving the pieces basically. But Eminem does a great job on Lose Yourself. And when Eminem finishes Lose Yourself, he takes a knee, a la exiled quarterback Colin Kaepernick. I didn't peep it at first, and then they flashed past him again, and I realized he was taking a knee and he had his head down, and so I was like, wow. And we came to find out later that I think the NFL asked him not to do it, but what are you going to do? He's Eminem. and he's on stage. I mean, you you can't, run out there and pull him off the stage. You can't fire him, because to my knowledge, I don't necessarily know that these performers get money for performing at the Super Bowl. They may get some money, but I don't think it's like that. I think it's the publicity of it is more than anything else. And I could be wrong. I don't know. Don't fact check me. But yeah, so that's going on. Eminem takes a knee. Um, and then Dr. Dre sits at the piano and he starts to play I Ain't Mad at You. And then he goes into the piano riff for the classic Still Dre, Still DRE. Man, listen. I was open at this point. And I'm watching this performance at my house with my wife, our kids, and my in-laws. My in-laws came over, because we always do the Super Bowl party and everything. And shout out to my father-in-law who he said midway through the second quarter he wanted to see Mary J. Blige. And I think he dozed off like right before halftime. And then when they tried to wake him up, he didn't see Mary J. Blige. But he did see Kendrick Lamar. He woke up when Kendrick Lamar was performing, and he said, "Who is that?" So shout out to him. And I got another funny story to tell you in just a second. But yeah, still DRE. And this, when they pan to the dancers, all of the dancers were in khakis and Chuck Taylors. You may never see a blacker moment than that. I mean, skull caps, long t-shirts, khakis, and Chuck Taylors. Come on, man. That was beautiful. Very well played. I don't know if you're outside of our culture, it might have flown over your head. I'm pretty sure that of the 70,000 people that were in SoFi Stadium, that outfit probably flew over most of the people in there. I'd probably say at least 65,000. But to have your dancers decked out in khakis, skull caps, and Chuck Taylors, hey man, perfect. I don't know who came up with that concept, but that was dope. And for Dre to be performing Still DRE with Snoop, man, it just brought back so many memories. I mentioned to people prior to the Super Bowl that, the best concert that I've ever seen, and I've said it before on this podcast, best concert that I've ever seen was the Up in Smoke tour. And, Dre performed, obviously, Snoop and Eminem. And that show was unreal. And I knew that I would be getting some of that vibe in this concert here at the Super Bowl. And I really did. And what was interesting was I mentioned how, they were they censored Kendrick to some degree. They asked Eminem not to take a knee, and he did. But Dre still said, quote, "still not loving police," which is, in that verse. So he still said it. So I guess you couldn't stop Dre. But by the end of the song, Mary J, 50, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar, they all joined Snoop and Dre on stage for the ending of Still DRE. And they finished it out, and the crowd goes crazy. I can't tell you how happy I was just to see that concert. I mean, and again, I'm still blown by the fact that it was 15 minutes, because it really, when I watched it live, it didn't really seem, it seemed long, but not too long. Or long enough. And I guess because it's the anticipation of you not knowing what it is that you're actually watching. And then, so, before I get out of here, I guess I got to get into the obvious questions. What could have been done differently? Not much. I was thoroughly pleased with everything. If I could make a change, I mean, obviously, I would like it to be longer than 15 minutes, but you have to keep in mind that this is not a concert. If you really want to see the G Funk All Stars, you got to go someplace and pay some money to go see them. The reality is that, NFL half times are only 15 minutes. And the Super Bowl is the rare time when halftime is, I think they move it to 30 minutes, I think. But you got to remember, from the end of the first half, when the players get off the field, they've only got about a window of 7 minutes to get, once they get off the field, get all of that stuff on them. So how they got that set and the props and everything like that is amazing. It is something to see when you see it live. I mentioned that I did go to a Super Bowl. I went to Super Bowl 21 to see my uncle who played for the New York Giants. His name is Harry Carson. To see him and the Giants whoop up on the Denver Broncos back in 1987 as they became Super Bowl champs. They won 39-20. And I think that halftime show was, I want to say it was Disney theme, but it wasn't that good. I mean, it wasn't that memorable. I could barely remember what happened. And I was in like the 8th grade. So who cares? But yeah, it's so they only had like 7 minutes to get that stuff on the field. And then when the performance is over, you might have another 5 minutes to, get it off the field. And then, the players got to get on there and warm up and everything. So it is, you really don't have a lot of time, relatively speaking, to perform. I mean, you got 15 minutes and that's all you got. You got 15 minutes. And I think really for them to have as many people on stage as they did, have as many artists performing, and to be able to pull that off and do it all in 15 minutes and everybody kind of get a chance to shine and nobody was really cut off or anything like that. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was great. I thought Dr. Dre pulled it off about as well as you could have. What other thing? I was cool with 50 because obviously he's on that Dre tree, that family tree, if you will. But if I could change something, hey man, because 50 obviously was a surprise guest. If you want to have a surprise guest, scratch 50, bring out Ice Cube, let him perform Today Was a Good Day. Come on now. Who wouldn't want to be singing that? I mean, hey, the white folks in the stands, they know today was a good day. Oh man. And the black people know it too. But yeah, I would have. Those are probably the only things over there. But I thought it was incredible. If I had to rate the show, it was a 10 out of 10. So where does it rank? I saw where people said, "Oh, this is the greatest Super Bowl halftime show ever." I don't know. I really don't have a great answer because it's all new. It just happened. It just happened like a couple of days ago. I think time will tell how great it was. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about some of the greatest performances, the Michael Jackson performance was great. Beyonce in New Orleans, shutting down the Superdome to the point where the lights go out. I mean, you can't get much better than that. And then a couple of years after that, when she performed, I can't remember who was the headliner, but she did Formation. That was incredible. That was blackety black. And then obviously Miami 2007 In the Rain, Prince Rogers Nelson. I mean, I'm a little biased. That's my guy. So it's hard to say where this would rank. It's up there though. It's in my top 3, I would guess. Just off the raw. More time has to pass, and we'll see. But this one could go as time progresses. I'll say this: while I don't have a great answer for where it ranks, I will say this much. It has the potential to be the greatest halftime show that we've ever seen. I really believe that. But time has to happen. It's like somebody put out an album on Friday. You can't call it a classic on Sunday. Y'all need to wait for a second, man. Let it breathe. Let the Super Bowl breathe for a second. But yeah, awesome performances by everybody involved. I did read the other day that some people were mad about, the artists that performed. Who cares? So some police boycotted it because, of some of the lyrics. Who cares? Go ahead and boycott. Who cares? So what? Relax. People were talking about, Dre's history of domestic abuse, and Snoop mysteriously got a lawsuit earlier in the week about some woman about sexual assault. Eminem, violent lyrics. Mary J. Blige has, she's been in abusive relationships. I mean, you can find a story there if you want. And I'm not diminishing any of that. I mean, but it's just like, it is what it is. That's something separate from the artist actually performing. If you want to have a conversation about it, okay, we can talk. You can make valid points on all of those things. But I'm talking music right now. But yeah, I mean, if you didn't like the show, if you didn't like that's the great part about the Super Bowl halftime. Because most of them, that's when I normally go to the bathroom. I might go to the store. I might do anything. Because I'm hardly ever paying attention. I'm hardly ever caring. Oh, but this one right here, man, I wasn't going nowhere. And I wasn't taking no phone calls, and I wasn't tweeting or anything until it was over. Which reminds me, I mentioned a little earlier about something funny. My phone rang during the Super Bowl halftime performance. The G-Funk All-Stars were performing, and my phone rang. And I'm thinking to myself, because I felt, my Apple Watch vibrating. I'm like, who in the world is calling me during halftime? Anybody that knows me knows that I'm watching this show. It was my dad. And my dad, if you know me or you heard me talk about him, my dad swear that he's hip. And it's funny because we had a conversation a couple of days prior to the Super Bowl. And he was saying, about how he was looking forward to seeing it because he, knew about Dre and he knew about Mary J. Blige. He thought Mary J. Blige was very pretty. He said that. He didn't know much about Kendrick, but he knew Eminem. And, so he's asking me these questions. And so anyway, he calls me. So I don't answer the phone. Of course, I don't answer the phone. So he leaves. I see he left me a voicemail. So he calls me, leaves me a voicemail, and I tweeted about this after halftime. He said, "Hey, I was calling to ask you, who's that fat guy hanging upside down doing the rapping thing?" Dad, that's 50 Cent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and thank you for subscribing to this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. And from time to time this year, we will be dropping bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight as well. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/spell it out, TWELVEKYLE. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.